Coronavirus is changing the world we live in. The Pi News is conducting a series of interviews with professionals in the international education industry to see how their organisations are being affected. In this episode, we look at how coronavirus is affecting language schools and pathway courses. We spoke with Lil Bremerman Richard, Group Chief Executive Officer of Language School Oxford International. Isaac Garcia Sitton is Director of International Education and English Language Institute at York University's School of Continuing Studies in Toronto. David Russell is both Director at Language School NED Training Centre and Chairman of the Progressive College Network in Ireland. Mary Wade is Chief Operating Officer for Pathway Company on campus, and Neil McLaughlin is Director at Buxwood Overseas Summer School. They told us how coronavirus is changing demand and how schools and programs are coping.
It's affecting clearly demand for our products. Most of our competitors and ourselves have been focusing on teaching English language face-to-face in physical buildings and in specific locations. That has been frankly thrown out the window over the last 4 weeks, more specifically, and we have all had to transition to online learning. That in itself has been a challenge, mostly because it wasn't something that we were doing, but two, in terms of teacher training and our people.
I can tell you anecdotally that across our country, particularly in language teaching, there has been quite the impact. A lot of language schools have closed or significantly reduced the amount of offerings that they have. In some other cases, because of the travel restrictions, 100% of their students are usually international students coming into Canada. So a lot of them were encouraged to go back home. And in many other ways, they can actually get here because of our travel restrictions or even with the recent government measures to close our borders.
The biggest challenge at the moment is the uncertainty. When the schools were closed initially, we were told that it was going to be 2 weeks. Now everybody's watching the news, everybody knows what's happening in the world. So even when that announcement did happen, everybody knew that it wasn't only going to be for 2 weeks. Now we've been faced with the situation that the announcement was made last week that the closure would continue until the 19th of April. Again, uncertainty, because if we knew that we could definitely open after the 19th of April, we can put plans in place. But as we watch this situation unfold globally, you have to face the realization that it may not be solved by the 19th of April. Obviously, businesses have to kind of look at the broader picture as to how long will this thing last? Can schools survive? I think at this stage, everybody has kind of gone into survival mode, just with the view of maintaining jobs and keeping doors open, basically.
Lots of logistical challenges to begin with. So that involved the very practical side of making sure we had the right software, making sure that our tutors all had access to laptops, which involved, some desperate purchasing of laptops and then distribution around the country, which did involve some of our staff driving, to deliver them because supply chains were quite disrupted at the time. And of course the challenge of our tutors, this isn't just going online. This is going online from your home, possibly with your children, to students who are equally isolated, very stressed. It isn't just the challenge of teaching online, it's the challenge of the circumstances that our students and our staff are finding themselves in. And I think it's a bit of an injustice to just say we're going online. We're working through some quite fundamental challenges with the added burden of isolation, uncertainty and stress.
As of now, one school has closed down as a direct result of this. in Ireland, they announced the closure on Friday. And unfortunately, everybody kind of has that fear that they're the first of many. Having said that, I mean, any school that I know certainly are trying to put things in place to ensure that they can weather this storm. But as it progresses and prolongs, that obviously becomes more challenging.
A lot of businesses have severely stripped back their operations. I saw a post on Facebook this morning from a friend who runs a summer camp, and they've decided this summer to call it off already. I'm positive. I think a lot of us are keeping our fingers crossed and really hoping that this summer will go ahead as normal and this is all over as quickly as possible. But I mean, schools have closed. There's a couple of businesses who rely purely on, for example, host families. Host families are very reluctant to take in students at the moment. So that's affected their ability to welcome students into their schools because there's nowhere for them to stay. There's other schools that rely heavily on students purely from China, for example, or purely from Italy. And at the moment, they can't get students from those countries. So that's kind of rendered their schools studentless, if you know what I mean. They put kind of too many eggs in one basket in one country, rather than, is the word diversifying across the world and having a bit of students from all over.
Student mobility restarts before the summer, and that demand comes back with the strength in this for junior programs to run in the summer and for the year-round schools to go back to normality in September.
The fact is that we will definitely deliver online for the spring and summer term. I think that would be the case for most countries right now. There's over 160 countries affected by COVID currently. I was reading the other day that UNESCO estimates that 87% of the total student body globally has been affected in one way or another by COVID-19. So I think best case scenario would be for institutions educating learners globally in the value of taking online courses, particularly language online courses. And best case scenario would be that we actually are able to mitigate huge losses by delivering online for the time being, until things get back to normal, hopefully sometime in the fall.
When you're tested, when you're challenged, something good will come out of it. I mean, you know, the sort of innovation we've been forced to do will undoubtedly make our programs better in the future, because we're just going to have a few more strings to our bow. Our tutors have been working incredibly hard to upskill themselves into the new technology. Our IT team been working all the hours they can to make sure students can access that. So we're always going to have that over this crisis. I mean, you know, you can't do that forever. It's exhausting. We're all exhausted, but it has been a very fertile, you know, time for that.
We are getting care, passion, pride, creativity, integrity, all coming to the surface because we need to get through this as a society, as a sector, as a company. And people have been only thinking about how to get through in a positive manner. I haven't experienced yet in the education sector negativity, because we are where we are. Coronavirus is not something that we have caused, but it's something that is happening to all of us, and we all want to do our best and thrive towards the end of this journey.